So I got this idea, which is kind of an adventure story combining pagan, Christian, and Elder Scrolls mythology all together. Um, it's supposed to be about a fictional nation just before the crucifixion, where the nation is ruled over by these seven lowercase g gods, but they're good, they're benevolent. That's why I was asking you about the possibility of good, benevolent gods ruling over nations. And they know that the time of Christ and the crucifixion is coming, and that they're going to be, you know, replaced. They're not going to be the gods anymore. They're going to end. And that Christian missionaries will come soon to, replace their religion. So what they do is these seven gods who I refer to them as the Anticipations, which is a nice reference to Elder Scrolls lore. They want to find an adventurer, like just one guy, and they want to send him on a quest so that he will become a famous and mighty hero in the eyes of his people, and he's going to be their witness to their death and to their replacement. And so when they die, when these gods die, their time ends. That he can go back to his people, and when Christian missionaries start showing up, he can say, "Yeah, these are the guys we're supposed to listen to. This is supposed to be our new religion." The Anticipations, they wanted this. They watched over us for a long time, and they loved us, and they protected us. But now their time is up. It's time to return to the one true God. And yeah, as to what that'll actually do, I haven't actually figured out the whole what he's gonna do on the adventure part yet. I've got a few ideas, but for now, that's just the basic outline. And so I want to get your thoughts on it, if you don't mind.
So that idea does exist in mythology to some degree. And well, maybe more like poetry than philosophy or than religion. Um, Virgil, uh, Virgil in his poems, if you've read them, a few of the eclogues, specifically the fourth one, speak about this. At the end of the fourth eclogue, he has the Olympians bowing to a son of heaven who is greater than the gods, born of a virgin, and who will usher in a new era for the earth, a new golden age. Some believe that Virgil had read Isaiah, because this is around the time that Romans are getting interested in Eastern religions. And there are a number of linguistic connections to Isaiah. Virgil talks about like the lion and the lamb bowing down together and stuff like that. Like a lot of the language Virgil writes is right out of Isaiah. And so some people believe that he discovered Jesus in the Old Testament and decided to integrate it into Roman mythology for Emperor Augustus. Some believe Emperor Augustus might have gotten the entire idea of an emperor, the concept of it, from Virgil's poetry. And Plato somewhat speaks about this, I think. Not really. In Timaeus, he mentions a high god who created the lesser gods that they worship, and then an offhand comment that he'll return one day to take the souls that the lesser gods have collected for him. Very interesting. So, in addition to that, of course, there's the Norse mythology, which has Ragnarok and the birth of new gods at the end of when the old gods die, and this idea that shows up occasionally. I would say, it's people would criticize it because there's a tendency amongst Puritans to just view all false gods as all other gods as false rather than potentially confusion for angels and such. Um, it's also worth mentioning that the word God, Elohim, Elohai, Elohi, in Aramaic and Hebrew, it doesn't really mean the word God like we would understand it today. It just means strong one. In the hieroglyphics, it's just a picture of a bull and a lachmad, which is a like it's the thing you stick a bull with to make it move in the direction you want, implying that, like, bull is strength, lamad is lachmad is direction, and so he who is strength and can direct it is a god, and the word uh El is used for often not only for God but also a king, a great man, and things like that. There's not actually a differentiation between a mortal strong man and a divine being in these ancient languages. Hence, it's sometimes up to the translator to decide if the passage is talking about God or a king. Usually, it's pretty clear. Same thing with titles like Malech in Hebrew and Aramaic, Melchim. It means angel. It also means messenger. It also means king. It also means leader. So, like, it's hard in translating the Old Testament, deciding, oh, is this passage talking about an angel or a king, an earthly king? These words are overlapping, and so you have to use context clues to understand it. But it does. I'll do the next message. It does imply a certain overlap with the concept of, like, what is a, like, a melech cannot claim to be an Elohim. Or Elohim means gods, plural, hence the use of it in the Old Testament implies a trinity. But a melech can't really occupy the same cat. There's overlap, but it can't really be an Elohi. A melech is one who occupies a throne or dominion created by the elves, if that makes sense. There's a divine council in a lot of these religions that carved up the world and put the powers in place that Malik minister to and rule through, if that makes sense. So these are things to think about. Like, it may not be right. I like the term. I forget. I already forgot what term you used to refer to these beings in your story, but I would maybe say, not sure if they should be called gods, or the more appropriate word would be Malek of the divine council. But I do like the word you use, which doesn't necessarily imply a god, but a divine being sent to rule, essentially. And this shows up in a lot of mythology anyway, right? Like Zeus was always, like, the top of the Olympians, but there was also the Titans before them, and so there's always this implication that there's a patriarchy over the Olympians, and it can go back other ways. And so, in Greek mythology, it's antagonistic with, like, the son killing the father. But in Roman mythology, they harmonize the Titans and the Olympians a bit more. They regard those elder gods as more, I guess, more respectfully than the Greeks, who tended to, like, look down at them as fallen gods. But if you think of, like, a kind of hierarchy of beings, I don't know. So, like, in one of my story ideas, I have the idea of, like, actually, it's been so long since I've thought about this story, I'm kind of forgetting my own ideas, but there's this idea that there's no worship in the religion of this story. It's kind of like an anti-worship, where the quote unquote gods of the religion of the story are antitypes. You're not supposed to be like them. You're not supposed to act like them. And I'm not sure if I want to add in like a good high god above them, but, like, the idea in this story is that, like, the entire religion hates its own gods. It's like it views them as more like it's kind of like an inverse Satanism, where like the religion of this world is designed in negatives rather than positives. So, like, they have like an Olympian style family of gods, but they represent the antitype, and humans who avoid the temptation of their gods become good and holy, and humans who go in with the gods become evil and like corrupted. And it's like a fun little experiment of like creating an anti-religion. And like in this story, I basically took the names of demons in Hanak Enoch, and used them as like the templates for like the gods of of this story. Again, I'm not sure if I should have a high god or if it should be like more of a humanist Whig like story where they're like uh, throughout the story they discover a high god, but in the start of it they don't actually have a high god. They just have these like antitypes, like the universe by itself is ideal, and then these gods corrupted the universe by messing with it, and in that corruption, it was created through corruption, and so like there's like a return to a divine perfection at the start by rejecting the gods. It's like a fun little like pseudo atheistic story, but kind of like subverting atheism a bit, or like I don't know. This is an idea I've had for a while that I've been playing with in my mind. So the Pope in this story is oh sorry, next one. The Pope in this universe is like considered the high rejecter, the high resistor, the one who can resist the gods the most, the one who can reject the gods the most, and he's like elected the Pope. And this the idea is like there are two factions of this religion in the world. The main imperial faction is like through the the Pope is like the antithesis of the gods, basically, like the perfect man. And then the other ones, the other faction is more well, yeah, because the Pope is very democratic and very democratic and egalitarian, like the ideal human existence. And then like the kind of Protestant sect in this world is more interested in uh mastering the gods rather than resisting them. So like like I don't know. There's a lot of ideas in the story I had when I first came up with it, and they've played in my head, but I've never really formalized it. It's just a fun little idea I had. It's like a more academic approach to uh pagan deities is that like some of them are going to be angels that are confused for gods, some of them are going to be demons confused for gods, and some of them are going to be ancient men confused for gods. It's a mix of all. Puritans and such like to just use wide-reaching labels like all the gods are false and all the gods are ancestors. It's kind of like silly. Each cult of the ancient world has to be kind of like taken in a vacuum a little bit. That's why I like to say, like, Apollo is called an angel of the void in Revelation 9:11, and whether that means he's a fallen angel or whether that means he's like a guardian angel keeping hell bound to hell in the void, I don't know. Like, the angel of the void is like a very Melkor like figure. It's a figure of ominousness. Like he guards the void. It's a very like esoteric sounding cult, and that's Apollo in the Bible. So in the Bible, Apollo is not a false god. He's a real spiritual being that guards the void. Whether or not this is like an evil deity, like like a fallen angel, or not, I have no idea. A lot of the Bible might suggest it's a fallen angel, and then it's like the angel of death. Apollo is basically called the angel of death because Agabon, I forget the name, is the Hebrew word for it, and this is like the angel of death. So like on one hand, the angel of death, God sends him as a loyal angel to slay Egyptians, but on the other hand, the death itself is thrown into the pit. So it's a bit confusing. Is this angel fallen or not? It's not exactly clear. Or is the is it just symbolic and death is being ended, and so that angel's dominion has fallen? I don't know. It's hard to understand that. But in Psalms and elsewhere, there is this idea of a divine council of like gods. Basically, they're not the high god, they're not the creator god, they're not the father god, as Plato puts it. But in the Hebrew lexicon, there's this idea of a divine council who rules the world, who is given power, and then God did not like the job they were doing. They were given authority over the earth. The nations were given these beings, and these beings ruined man, and so God punishes them. And so it sounds like these are fallen angels. However, at the same time, some of these pagan gods have the same names as the sons of Noah. So those gods are going to be men that have been deified by myth and glorification of ancestors. And again, I have my thinking. My thought is usually I try to base things in reality. So like the Romans and the Greeks and everybody they tended to deify the stars, and so like we have five visible planets in the sky: Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, Venus, and Mercury. Jupiter is typically called the king planet, and Saturn is even before telescopes, Saturn was called the enchained planet, like the one in chains, like a ring, which is kind of fascinating. I think they probably saw somehow a ring around the planet, not sure how, but it's not by chance that they're calling Saturn the enchained. And then Mars is war, Venus is I forget what, and Mercury is the messenger. So, in my opinion, Mercury is clearly Gabriel, Mars is clearly Michael, and you can go down the name of angels. There are four archangels mentioned in the Bible, and then you have to wonder, well, Satan was like the fifth that was cast out and enchained, and Jupiter, I think, would be the angel of the Lord, like Jesus in hiding and waiting. Jesus hidden amongst the angels, pretending to be one of them. And from that you can start using the constellations to tell stories. Like when Jesus was born, Jupiter the king was in Virgo the virgin, so the virgin was pregnant with the king. So Jupiter seems to be symbolic of the angel of the Lord, aka Jesus Christ. Saturn seems to pretty obviously be Satan, and Michael, Mars, and Mercury. Mercury is Gabriel sending messages close to the light of God. There's a symbolism in the constellations and the stars. And of course, I don't. If the sun is symbolic of the great light of God, then the moon would be like the lesser reflection. So it'd probably be the Holy Spirit. And so the moon, the sun, and Jupiter would be symbolic of the Trinity. And these are very slow, regular moving worlds, whereas the other planets are closer to the sun, so they move faster in the sky, and they're considered more angelic figures. Their motions are more irregular. They're less regulated. They're more involved with change in the world, and you can kind of from that get a certain sense of what the overlap is between Christian and pagan mythology a little bit. That's why I like to say, Mars. I sometimes call Saint Michael the god of war because it's overlapping with Mars, and it's just fun to imagine ancient Romans confusing the angel Michael as like Mars or Ares or something like that. Like, oh yeah, this is like the warrior angel. He's the god of war. Mercury, the god, and Gabriel both fulfill a similar purpose, etc., etc. I'm forgetting Venus. I don't remember all the names of the archangels, nor the names of the gods, but there seems to be overlap there. And so, Saturn would be a fallen one. Jupiter would be God. Same with the sun and moon. And Mercury and Mars would be loyal. Michael's just like, who is like God. He's like this like warrior angel who does badass stuff, but he's still loyal to God. So Michael is often contesting with Satan because they both have a similar nature about them, but one is fallen and one is holy. And so that's like they're inversions of each other, even in the sky, where Mars and Jupiter are often next to each other because Mars orbits half the speed of Earth and Jupiter orbits in 60 years. So basically every 2 years, Mars and Jupiter are hanging out together, contesting with each other. And when Jupiter and Mars are in conflict with each other, when Saturn, I'm confusing Saturn and Jupiter, my bad. Saturn and Mars are often contesting with each other in the constellations. And so there's this idea of Michael and Satan contesting with each other, the chained one and the one carrying the spear to throw at the will of God. It's fun to think like this. It's fun to try to match cosmology, theology, and history a little bit like that. That's my little rant. Hopefully it helps with your story.
Yeah, I mean, wow. So thank you once again. You have indeed helped me with my story. It's very cool to hear about all this stuff. You're very intelligent, very well read, and it did help me with my story, especially where you liked that I called them the anticipations. That's very validating. Thank you. You know, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the story. Like, as of right now, it's more like a side thing because I'm actually working on a big, long, epic novel that's that's a completely different story. And so this is an idea that's going to be probably a lot shorter, might even be an actual short story, and I'll only like properly ever write it after. But you've been very helpful, and just I wanted to ask you about it now because I figured, well, if I don't do it, I might never ask him about it, and then I'll lose my passion for it. So but thank you. Like I said, you're a very good friend, and I'd love to talk to you again sometime about something else. Maybe I'll even tell you about some ideas in my epic story, my novel. But until then, Mr. Aelthemplaer, please, as usual, have a good night and God bless you, sir.